They've always been aware of what they did to you. It wasn't accidental, coincidental, or a misunderstanding. It was calculated, intentional, designed to diminish your light because your authenticity exposes their falseness. You felt it, haven't. You know that moment when you enter a space and something shifts instantly. The energy transforms, gazes turn away, conversations change tone. It's not paranoia, not imagination, it's frequency. Your genuine frequency collides with their manufactured vibration, and they sense it. The fake always recognize the authentic. Manipulators always identify the genuine. Like oil and water, they never truly blend, and they tried to escape the consequences of what they did to you, tried to hide their actions, their words, their small acts of sabotage. But the universe maintains perfect records. Karma doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, doesn't negotiate. Karma simply balances. Have you noticed how they change when your truth manifests? Do you observe how they attempt to quiet your voice when it carries power? They don't fear your words. They fear when you choose to speak with authenticity, because your truth exposes all the lies they've so carefully constructed. The matrix of falsehood they've created begins to crumble when you simply exist in your pure truth. Don't need to shout. No need to point fingers. Your aligned presence is enough to destabilize worlds of illusion. The streets know. The spaces know. The air between you knows. Some truths need not be spoken because they're felt, perceived, absorbed by those present. Those who attempted to diminish your light are now confronting the darkness they created. Those who tried to silence your voice are now facing the echo of their own silence. Those who tried to minimize your impact are now feeling the weight of their own insignificance. It's not revenge, it's balance. Not punishment, but restoration. The universe operates through perfect cycles of cause and effect, action and consequence. They planted seeds of diminishment. Now they harvest fruits of decline. They sowed doubt. Now they reap uncertainty. They distributed falsehood. Now they receive distrust. Each frequency emitted returns amplified. Each energy projected comes back multiplied. You didn't come to this world to diminish yourself. You came to expand. You didn't come to hide. You came to illuminate. You didn't come to imitate. You came to authenticate. And this truth, this genuine presence, this frequency aligned with your highest purpose is what most threatens those living in the shadows of manipulation. They tried to program you to doubt yourself because your certainty exposes their fragility. They tried to make you question your perception because your clarity reveals their confusion. They tried to convince you that you were too sensitive because your sensitivity detects the subtleties of their manipulations. Now the tide is turning. Now the pendulum is swinging back. Now the planted seeds are germinating. What they did to you is returning to them with perfect interest, not because you wished it, but because it's universal law. The law of reciprocity never fails, never wavers, never takes sides. It simply returns what was sent, and they feel it now even if they won't admit it. They feel the unstable ground beneath their feet, feel the growing uncertainty in their plans, feel the increasing fragility in their structures. Karma is arriving, not as punishment but as teacher, not as revenge but as balance. Number 2, the presence of someone authentic instantly transforms the energetic field of any environment. It's quantum physics in action, alchemy in motion, transformation through simple aligned existence. When you enter a space carrying your intact truth, without dilutions, without compromises, something invisible yet palpable shifts in the field. Manipulators feel it first, like animals sensing. Changes in atmospheric pressure before a storm. They detect the threat to their elaborately woven web of illusions. Your authenticity is a beam of light exposing all the dark corners where manipulation thrives. That's why they tried so hard to diminish you, silence you, make you doubt yourself. Your clarity threatens their shadow games. Have you noticed how inauthentic people become uncomfortable in the presence of someone living their truth? It's not you doing something, it's you being someone. It's not your words that disturb them, it's your frequency. It's your vibration that clashes with their falseness. It's like a tuning fork that, when struck, causes all other tuning forks of the same frequency to begin vibrating too. Your authenticity, forces the dormant authenticity within them to respond, and that terrifies them. Because facing one's own truth means abandoning all masks, all protections, all false identities they've so meticulously constructed. When the authentic enter a room, the air becomes denser with truth. Superficial conversations become harder to maintain. Social masks become heavier to sustain. Pretensions become more obvious to everyone. It's not you judging, it's you reflecting. Not you attacking, but you existing in such alignment that any misalignment becomes painfully obvious by contrast, like a perfectly tuned note that immediately reveals all the out-of-tune notes around it. Your presence creates a field of coherence that makes incoherence unsustainable. They tried to escape this, tried to avoid you, tried to discredit you, tried to make others doubt you. They created narratives to explain why your presence bothers them so much. She thinks she's better than everyone. He's too intense, she's too sensitive, he's difficult to deal with. All these narratives are imprecise translations of the truth. Your authenticity forces me to confront my own lack of authenticity. They can't admit this, not even to themselves, so they create alternative stories to justify their discomfort in your presence. But the universe knows energy doesn't lie, frequency doesn't deceive. And now, what they planted is growing. The discomfort they felt in your presence is transforming into constant discomfort with themselves. The doubts they tried to plant in you are blossoming as uncertainties in their own minds. The isolation they tried to create for you is manifesting as their own isolation, not because you wished this for them, but because that's how energy works. What you project, you attract. What you emit, you receive. Karma isn't revenge, it's spiritual physics. And you're growing stronger in your truth each day. Each attempt of theirs to diminish you transforms into an opportunity for you to reaffirm your worth. Each effort to silence you becomes an invitation for you to find your voice with more clarity. Each attempt at isolation transforms into a chance for you to discover who your true allies are. They didn't realize that in trying to weaken you, they were actually strengthening you. That in trying to break you, they were actually tempering you. That in trying to diminish your light, they were actually feeding your flames. Number 3. Watch how the false react when someone true enters their territory. It's fascinating, revealing, almost predictable in its consistency. First comes cautious curiosity. They sense something different, something they can't immediately categorize or control. Then comes the attempt at co-optation. They try to bring you into their game, try to make you play by their rules, try to see if you can be manipulated like the others. When that fails, and it always fails with the authentically aligned, comes discomfort. Conversations become tense, smiles don't reach the eyes, words say one thing while energy says another. Finally, when it becomes clear you won't compromise your truth to fit in, comes active rejection. Gossip begins, exclusions happen, your reputation is questioned. You've been through this, haven't you? You felt the shift in atmosphere when you refused to participate in the small lies, the small betrayals, the small power games that the inauthentic used to establish hierarchy. You noticed how quickly you became problematic when you refused to dim your light so they could shine. You perceived how rapidly you became difficult when you established clear boundaries. You recognized how swiftly you became arrogant when you refused to doubt what you knew to be true. It wasn't your imagination. It was their reaction to your truth. Manipulators have a deep investment in keeping everyone around them slightly misaligned with their own truth. People who doubt themselves are easier to control. People who question their own perception are easier to manipulate. People who don't trust their own intuition are easier to deceive. So when someone like you appears, someone anchored in their own truth, someone who trusts their own perception, someone who honors their own intuition, you become an existential threat to the system they've so carefully created. That's why they tried so hard to make you doubt yourself. That's why they distorted your words, rewrote events, denied realities you witnessed with your own eyes. That's why they united against you, validating each other's lies, creating an alternative reality where you are the problem, not the solution. That's why they worked so hard to isolate you, to cut your connections with others who might validate your perception. All that effort, all that energy, all that strategic planning, simply because your truth threatened to expose their lies. But what they didn't understand is that truth doesn't need consensus to be truth. Reality doesn't need approval to be real. Authenticity doesn't need validation to be authentic. While they were busy building networks of mutual validation for their falsehoods, you were growing stronger in your forced solitude. While they were busy agreeing with each other about distorted versions of reality, you were developing a deeper connection with truth. While they were busy excluding you from their circles, you were discovering your true circle, those rare ones who, like you, prefer uncomfortable truth to comfortable lies. And now they're reaping what they sowed, the networks of falsehood. They built are crumbling under the weight of their own contradictions. The alliances based on mutual validation of lies are breaking when truth begins to emerge. The circles that excluded you are fragmenting from within. Not because you did anything, but because truth always finds its way to the surface. Like water, it always finds an opening. Like light, it always finds a crack. Like air, it always finds a space to flow. They tried to build structures impervious. It's not a truth, but no such thing exists. Eventually, inevitably, truth penetrates. Karma is acting now, not as divine punishment, but as natural consequence. They are experiencing the distrust they sowed. They are feeling the isolation they created. They are facing the confusion they generated. And you're emerging stronger, clearer, more aligned than ever, not because you wished them ill, but because you refused to deviate from your own truth, even when it meant walking alone. You didn't come to fit into their spaces, you came to create your own space. A space where truth is valued above conformity, where authenticity is celebrated above popularity, where integrity is honored above convenience. Number 4. There exists a profound power in silence and observation that few truly understand. The inauthentic fill the air with empty words, with hollow promises, with unsolicited assertions of virtues they don't possess. They talk to fill the void, talk to control the narrative, talk to prevent truth from finding space to emerge. But the authentic know the value of strategic silence. They know when to observe rather than react. They know when to witness rather than intervene. They know that in attentive silence lies the true power of discernment. You've felt this, haven't you? That moment when you chose not to immediately respond to a provocation, not to instantly react to manipulation, not to impulsively defend yourself against a false accusation. And in that space of conscious pause, you saw everything with crystal clarity. You saw the underlying patterns, saw the true motivations, saw the strategies being employed against you. In your silence, you gained information. In your quietness, you gained power. In your patient observation, you gained strategic advantage. Manipulators count on your immediate reaction. They depend on your impulsive defense. They bet on your need to be understood, to be validated, to be accepted. When you react immediately, you play within the field they prepared. You operate within the parameters they established. You dance the dance they choreographed. But when you choose silence, when you choose patient observation, when you refuse the invitation to react, you change the game completely. You step out of their field and force them to enter yours. The silence of the authentic is not the silence of submission or defeat. It's the silence of the warrior assessing the battlefield before making their move. It's the silence of the master, observing the student to understand where the true lesson lies. It's the silence of the sage, who knows that hasty words can obscure truth rather than reveal it. It's the powerful silence that makes the inauthentic uncomfortable because they don't know how to interpret it, don't know how to respond to it, don't know how to control it. Those who tried to diminish you, silence you, isolate you, they never understood that in the silence they forced upon you, you were developing the muscles of precise observation. You were fine-tuning your ability to see beyond words to the energy behind them. You were developing your skill at detecting incongruities between what is said and what is true. You were honing your capacity to sense the frequency of lies, even when they come dressed in the language of concern, care, friendship. Now, this refined capacity for observation is becoming your greatest asset. You see what others cannot see. You perceive what others cannot perceive. You understand what others cannot understand. And this discernment acquired through forced silence is exactly what allows you to navigate with precision while those who tried to harm you are stumbling through the consequences of their own actions. They are confused, disoriented, uncertain, while you are clear, centered, secure. Karma is not just about actions returning to those who generated them. It's also about the growth that occurs while the cycle completes. While they were busy plotting against you, you were evolving beyond their strategies. While they were busy conspiring to limit you, you were expanding into dimensions they cannot comprehend. While they were busy trying to cage you in their small boxes of perception, you were discovering there was never any box to begin with. Now, in your powerful silence, you observe as they face the consequences of their actions, not with malicious joy at their pain, but with solemn understanding that this is how the universe teaches, how life corrects, how reality restores balance. You're not watching to validate your ego, you're witnessing to absorb the lesson. Because the truly wise learn not just from their own experiences, but also by attentively observing the experiences of others. Number 5. There are moments in life when defending truth is deeply inconvenient, socially risky, and personally costly. These are moments when the collective lie is more comfortable, when the shared illusion is safer, when mutual denial is easier. It's in these moments that the authentic separate from the performative, that the people of integrity distinguish themselves from the convenient, that the aligned differentiate from the adaptable. It's in these moments that your true nature as a chosen one reveals itself with greatest clarity. You've been at that crucial moment, haven't you? That instant where you realized you had a choice. You could join the collective lie and preserve your social position, your job, your relationships, your comfort. Or you could stand for truth, even knowing there would be consequences. And something within you, something deeper than your fear, wiser than your conditioning, more essential than your desire to belong, chose truth. Not because it would be easy, but because anything else would be unbearable. Manipulators count on the silence of the good. They depend on the fear of the authentic. They bet on the self-preservation of the integral. They know most will choose safety over truth, comfort over integrity, acceptance over authenticity. And usually they're right. But then someone like you appears, someone who cannot make that trade, someone for whom the cost of denying truth is greater than the cost of defending it. And your choice changes everything, not just for you, but for everyone around you. When you stand for truth at the moment it's most inconvenient, you create a crack in the field of artificial consensus. You introduce an element of discord into forced harmony. You place a grain of sand in the well-oiled machine of conformity. And that small act of courage, that seemingly insignificant moment of alignment with your inner truth, has repercussions far beyond what you can see in the moment. Like ripples expanding from a stone thrown in a lake, your spoken truth propagates in ways you could never anticipate. Those who tried to diminish you, silence you, make you doubt your own perception, they were trying to avoid exactly this moment. They instinctively knew that if you remained true to your truth, if you trusted your own perception, if you honored your own integrity, you would eventually become that uncomfortable voice at the crucial moment, that person who would refuse to participate in the collective lie, that individual who would be willing to sacrifice comfort for truth. And they feared this more than anything else, because a single voice of truth can dismantle years of careful illusion building. A single person willing to say this isn't right can inspire others who are keeping silent out of fear. A single act of courage can catalyze a cascade of authenticity that completely transforms power dynamics. That's why manipulators work so hard to isolate the authentic, to discredit them in advance, to make others doubt them before they even speak. But now the seeds you planted by standing for truth in inconvenient moments are germinating. The courage you demonstrated is inspiring others. The integrity you maintained is strengthening those who were hesitant, and those who tried to silence you are discovering that truth, once spoken, cannot be easily contained. It spreads, grows, multiplies. Like light entering a dark room, it cannot be ignored, cannot be denied, cannot be unseen once seen. Karma is operating now, not just through the direct consequences of their acts, but through the catalytic impact of yours. Each time you chose truth over convenience, you were altering the energetic field. Each time you refused to participate in the collective lie, you were changing the frequency of the environment. Each time you risked comfort for integrity, you were planting seeds of transformation that are now blossoming in unexpected places, in unpredictable ways. Number 6. The most powerful leadership rarely comes from grand declarations or official positions. It comes from silent example, consistent integrity, unwavering authenticity in the face of pressures to compromise. True agents of transformation don't need to announce their mission. They simply live it, moment by moment, choice by choice, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Because true leadership isn't performance, it's essence. It's not about what you proclaim to be, it's about who you consistently are. You've felt the power of this, haven't you? Those moments when you simply lived your truth without fanfare, without announcement, without seeking validation or recognition. Those moments when you chose the path of greater resistance, not to impress others, but because any other path would be a betrayal of yourself. Those moments when you maintained your values, even when it would have been infinitely easier to abandon them. And then, later, you discovered someone was watching, that someone noticed, that your silent example impacted someone in ways you never could have planned or predicted. Manipulators and falsifiers live in the realm of proclamation. They announce their virtues, declare their noble intentions, proclaim their commitment to higher causes, but their words and actions rarely align. They say one thing and do another. They promise and don't deliver. They affirm values they don't live, and they believe no one notices the discrepancy, or if they do, that it doesn't matter. But the silent observers are always present. The attentive witnesses are always watching. And the incongruence between words and actions is always registered, always remembered, always a factor in the real influence someone has. Those who tried to diminish you, discredit you, isolate you, they were responding not so much to what you said, but to what you silently represented. Your consistency threatened their hypocrisy. Your authenticity exposed their falseness. Your integrity made their lack of character more visible by contrast. Like a perfectly tuned note in an out-of-tune orchestra, your presence made the dissonance around you more apparent, not because you were actively exposing or accusing, but simply because you were being who you are without apology. Leadership, by example, is the purest form of human influence. It requires no formal position, depends on no granted authority, needs no institutional power. It operates at the most fundamental level of human interaction, observation and inspiration. Others observe how you navigate life's complexities, how you respond to challenges, how you maintain your integrity under pressure. And something within them recognizes truth when they see it. Something within them resonates with authenticity when they encounter it. Something within them yearns for that same internal congruence you demonstrate, and now the seeds of your silent leadership are blossoming in unexpected places. People you didn't even know were watching are making different choices because of your example. Individuals you never realized were paying attention are finding courage because of your courage. Souls you didn't know were being impacted are discovering their own authentic voice inspired by yours, not because you tried to lead, but because you refused to follow, not because you tried to teach, but because you insisted on learning your own lessons of integrity. Meanwhile, those who tried to diminish your light are discovering their influence is diminishing. Those who operated through manipulation are finding growing resistance to their tactics. Those who relied on coercion and control are losing their power over others. Not because you organized a revolt against them, but because your silent example gave others a vision of different possibility. You showed it's possible to live with integrity even when it costs something. You demonstrated it's possible to remain authentic even when it would be easier to compromise. You proved it's possible to stay true to your truth even when the world tries to convince you to abandon it. Karma is working now, not through some mystical intervention, but through the natural consequence of demonstrated truth versus exposed falseness. People naturally gravitate toward what is real. They instinctively trust what is authentic. They intrinsically respect what has integrity. You didn't need to destroy those who tried to diminish you. You simply needed to remain intact while their own actions diminished them in the eyes of others. You didn't need to discredit those who tried to discredit you. You simply needed to maintain your credibility while they lost theirs through their own inconsistencies. Number 7. There exists a language beyond words that communicates deeper truths than any elaborate speech ever could. It's the language of energy, of frequency, of authentic vibration. It's perceived not by the ears, but by the intuitive system of the body, by the instinctive wisdom of the heart, by the refined perception of consciousness. In this silent language, truth resonates with crystal clarity, even when never spoken aloud. And it's in this language that the authentic are most eloquent and the false most obviously exposed. You've experienced this, haven't you? Those moments when you felt the truth of a situation before any word was spoken. Those occasions when you perceived the incongruence between what someone was saying and what they really meant. Those instances when you caught the true intention behind words carefully chosen to conceal it. It wasn't guesswork, wasn't paranoia, wasn't coincidence. It was your natural ability to read the true communication happening beyond words. Manipulators and falsifiers invest tremendously in their words. They carefully construct speeches, meticulously choose terminology, strategically employ language to create illusions, disguise intentions, hide truths. They believe that if the words are convincing enough, the incongruent energy behind them will go unnoticed. They bet that their verbal eloquence will mask their energetic dissonance, and for many it works, but not for the perceptive, not for the sensitive, not for the authentic, who speak and understand fluently the language of non-verbal truth. Those who try to diminish you, manipulate you, make you doubt your own perception. They were responding to your fluency in this language of truth. Your ability to perceive beyond their carefully constructed words threatened them. Your skill at sensing the incongruence between what they said and who they really were left them vulnerable. Your willingness to trust your perceptions even when they contradicted the official narrative exposed them in ways they couldn't control. So naturally, they tried to discredit your perception, tried to convince you that you were reading too much into situations, tried to persuade you that you were being too sensitive, tried to make you believe your intuition was wrong and your instincts were flawed. But truth needs no words to be communicated, even when you were silenced, even when you were isolated, even when you were prevented from speaking your truth aloud. Your energy continued communicating, your presence continued transmitting, your frequency continued radiating, and those with eyes to see and heart to feel caught the message clearly. Here is someone real in a sea of performances. Here is someone true in an ocean of falsehoods. Here is someone integral in a world of compromises. This silent communication of truth is what eventually exposes all lies, no matter how elaborately constructed or fervently defended they may be. Because truth has time on its side, truth has consistency in its favor, truth has natural resonance with reality itself. While lies require constant maintenance, constant defense, constant elaboration, to sustain themselves, truth simply persists, unchanging, unwavering, indestructible even when temporarily obscured. And now, those who tried to obscure your truth are discovering that the darkness they created is dissipating. Those who tried to silence your voice are realizing that the silence is speaking volumes. Those who tried to isolate you to limit your impact are seeing that your influence has spread in ways they couldn't predict or control. Because truth needs no permission to be truth. Reality needs no consensus to be real. Authenticity needs no validation to be authentic. Karma isn't coming like a bolt from the sky or a divine judgment. It's coming as the inevitable emergence of truth that was always present, just temporarily obscured. It's coming as the natural unfolding of consequences that were always in motion, just not visible on the surface. It's coming as the inescapable realization that, in the end, what is real persists and what is false dissolves under the weight of its own inconsistency. Number 8. There is a unique power in the ability to see through others' masks, to perceive beyond facades, to detect truth behind performances. It's not a supernatural ability. It's a natural perception that we all possess, but many suppress to conform, to belong, to avoid the discomfort of seeing what others prefer to keep hidden. The authentic, however, cannot switch off this perception, cannot ignore this vision, cannot pretend they don't see what they clearly see. And it's this refusal to participate in collective blindness that often marks them for diminishment, isolation, and attack. You've experienced this, haven't you? Those moments when you saw through someone's mask and perceived the inconsistency between who they claim to be and who they really are. Those instants when you detected the falseness in a smile, the manipulation, in an offer of help, the hidden agenda in an apparently generous gesture. Not because you were looking, but because you were simply present and attentive. Not because you wanted to see, but because you couldn't not see. Not because you were judging, but because you were perceiving with clarity what was really happening. Manipulators and falsifiers depend on their ability to convince others to accept the facade as reality. They invest tremendously in their masks, in their performances, in their carefully constructed personas. Their power comes from the collective acceptance of their illusion as truth. Their control depends on others' willingness to ignore incongruities, neglect contradictions, suppress perceptions that challenge the official narrative. So when someone like you appears, someone who sees clearly, someone who perceives precisely, someone who cannot be persuaded to doubt their own perception, you become an existential threat to the entire system of illusion they've so carefully created. That's why they worked so hard to discredit your perception. That's why they tried so persistently to convince you that you were seeing things that weren't there. That's why they put so much effort into making you doubt your own eyes, ears, feelings, instincts, and intuitions. Because if you could be persuaded to distrust yourself, you would stop challenging their fabricated reality, even if silently, even if only through your refusal to participate in the collective denial. But what they didn't understand is that your ability to see through masks isn't a choice you make. It's a fundamental nature of who you are. You cannot help but see what you see, just as you cannot help but breathe the air. You cannot turn off your perception, just as you cannot turn off your heart. You cannot deny your clarity, just as you cannot deny your own existence. So even when you were silenced, even when you were excluded, even when you were isolated, you continued seeing. And that simple act of witnessing with clarity, even in silence, even alone, was a powerful force entering the collective field. Now, others are beginning to see what you always saw. The masks you perceived long ago are beginning to slip for all to see. The incongruities you noticed from the start are becoming obvious, even to the least perceptive. The manipulations you detected in the past are being exposed in plain sight, not because you organized a campaign to reveal the truth, but because truth always, eventually, reveals itself. Not because you forced an exposure, but because what is false cannot sustain itself indefinitely against the constant pressure of reality. And those who tried to discredit your perception, diminish your clarity, make you doubt your vision, they are now facing the terrible realization that you were seeing correctly all along, that your perception was accurate from the beginning, that your clear vision represented the greatest threat to their system of illusion, not because you were actively trying to bring it down, but simply because you refused to participate in the collective denial that sustained it. Karma has arrived not as punishment, but as inevitable return to truth, not as revenge, but as natural dissolution of what was never real in the first place, not as judgment, but as simple consequence of reality resurfacing after periods of artificial obscurement. And you need do nothing more than continue seeing clearly, perceiving precisely, witnessing honestly. Your refusal to compromise your perception, even when it cost you comfort, acceptance, and belonging, was more powerful than you imagined. Not because you were actively fighting against their illusions, but because you were unwaveringly aligned with what is real. Number 9. There is a calling, a purpose, a unique designation for those who carry truth in a world often committed to convenience rather than authenticity. This calling is not chosen, it chooses you. This purpose is not manufactured, it is discovered. This designation is not earned, it is revealed through your own essential nature and the way you respond to the inevitable challenges that arise when you refuse to dim your light to make others comfortable in their darkness. You've felt this, haven't you? That deep certainty, that you were created for something more than simply fitting in, conforming, playing the designated social roles without question. That unshakable understanding that your discomfort with falseness is not a flaw to be corrected, but an internal compass to be followed. That quiet knowing that your insistence on remaining true, even when it costs something, is not stubbornness, but essential alignment with your deepest nature and highest purpose. Those who chose falseness as a way of life, who preferred manipulation as a tool of influence, who opted for convenience instead of integrity, they will never fully understand your path. To them, your refusal to compromise seems rigid, your insistence on truth seems arrogant, your fidelity to your own perception seems stubborn, but you know at a level that transcends rational explanation that deviating from your truth would be more than just a simple compromise. It would be a fundamental betrayal of everything you are and everything you came here to do. Those who tried to diminish you, silence you, make you doubt yourself, they were reacting not just to who you are, but to what you represent. You are a living reminder of a choice they made long ago and perhaps have forgotten they made. The choice to abandon their own authenticity in exchange for advantage, to sacrifice their integrity for comfort, to compromise their truth for acceptance. Each time you refuse to do the same, you unwittingly reflect back to them the magnitude of what they gave up. And that reflection is too painful to face, so they try to break the mirror instead of looking at the reflection. But your calling as one of the chosen not for superiority, but for willingness to carry the sometimes lonely weight of authenticity, was never to convince them to change. Your purpose was never to convert them to your view. Your designation was never to transform them through persuasion or argument. Your calling was always simply to exist in your truth with such completeness, such consistency, such clarity, that your very presence becomes a living possibility in the collective field. A possibility that another way of being, another way of living, another way of relating is real and available to anyone willing to pay the price of admission. And that price of admission, it's the willingness to face one's own shadow, the courage to question one's own compromises, the humility to acknowledge one's own inconsistencies, the strength to abandon false identities built over years, the vulnerability to admit that perhaps, just perhaps, they chose safety instead of truth, conformity instead of authenticity, acceptance instead of integrity. It's a price many are not willing to pay. It's a price many cannot even conceive. It's a price that you, at many points in your journey, may have questioned whether it was worth it. But now you're seeing the alchemy that occurs when you remain true to your calling, even when it's difficult, even when it's lonely, even when it seems you're losing more than you're gaining. You're witnessing the transformation that happens not just within you, but in the field around you when you refuse to abandon your truth. You're experiencing the power that emerges not from dominating others, but from mastering yourself, from remaining sovereign in your own experience, true to your own perception, aligned with your own integrity, regardless of external pressures to compromise. Karma has now arrived, not as retribution for specific actions, but as natural maturation of seeds planted long ago. The seeds of authenticity you planted are blossoming into a harvest of clarity that benefits not just you, but everyone around you willing to partake in it. The seeds of courage you cultivated are producing fruits of freedom available to anyone hungry enough to taste them. The seeds of integrity you protected are generating a garden of possibilities where others can discover their own truth, in their own time, on their own terms. Your calling was always larger than your personal history with those who tried to diminish you. Your purpose was always broader than revenge, validation, or even vindication. Your designation was always to serve something greater than your wounded ego, your offended pride, or your desire to be proven right. You came to be a reference point of authenticity in a world often lost in performances. You came to be a beacon of truth in a landscape frequently obscured by half-truths and complete lies. You came to be an anchor of integrity in seas often churned by convenience and compromise. And as those who tried to escape what they did to you now face the consequences of their choices, you're discovering there's a freedom beyond revenge, a peace beyond vindication, a joy beyond being proven right. It's the freedom of knowing you remain true to your highest calling, even when it costs something. It's the peace of recognizing you honored your deepest purpose, even when there was no guarantee of outcome. It's the joy of experiencing your unique designation manifesting not as a position of superiority over others, but as a gift of possibility for all, including those who once tried to diminish your light. This is the true triumph of the chosen. Not that others are punished for their actions, but that all, including those who caused harm, have the opportunity to awaken to their own truth. Not that karma is revenge, but that karma is teacher. Not that justice is retribution, but that justice is restoration. Not that you are above those who tried to diminish you, but that you have transcended the entire dynamic of diminishment and have found a place of authentic power that doesn't depend on the disempowerment of others to exist. They tried to escape what they did to you, but karma always arrives. Not as punishment, but as invitation to awareness. Not as sentence, but as opportunity for growth. Not as ending, but as beginning of a new understanding, a new possibility, a new way of being that honors truth in all its forms, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it requires us to face what we would prefer to avoid. Your calling has always been to be a catalyst for this expanded consciousness. Not through force or coercion, but through the silent example of a life lived in alignment with truth, regardless of the cost, regardless of the consequence, regardless of the final outcome. The authentic know that each moment offers a choice between truth and convenience, between integrity and comfort, between alignment and acceptance. The inauthentic believe these choices are simply tactical decisions without deeper significance. But you understand that each choice is a thread in the tapestry of your soul's evolution, each decision a brushstroke on the canvas of your spiritual development. When you consistently choose truth over convenience, integrity over comfort, alignment over acceptance, you aren't just making isolated decisions, you're crafting your destiny. Those who have attempted to diminish your light are now witnessing the inevitable consequences of their own pattern of choices. The darkness they attempted to cast on you has returned to envelop them. The confusion they tried to create in you has emerged in their own minds. The isolation they engineered for you has materialized in their own experience. Not because you wished it upon them, but because the universe maintains perfect equilibrium. What goes out must return. What is projected must be experienced. What is created must be faced. You've discovered that the greatest protection against manipulation isn't defensiveness but discernment. It isn't walls but wisdom. It isn't isolation but integrity. By maintaining your connection to truth regardless of external pressures, you've developed an immunity to the games of diminishment that once affected you so deeply. You can now recognize attempts at manipulation not with fear or anger, but with clear-eyed perception and compassionate understanding. You can see the wounded child behind the adult manipulator, the fear behind the attack, the insecurity behind the attempt to control. This expanded awareness doesn't mean you allow others to diminish you. Quite the opposite. It means you recognize diminishment attempts for what they are and choose not to energetically participate in them. You understand that when someone attempts to reduce your light, they're actually revealing the limitations of their own perception, not defining your worth or potential. Their attempts to contain you reflect their boundaries, not yours. Their efforts to define you expose their definitions, not your essence. The universe has its own timing for the unfolding of consequences, for the ripening of karma, for the revealing of truth. Sometimes the cycle completes quickly. Manipulations are exposed, falsehoods are revealed. Justice is restored in ways visible to all. But often the process unfolds in dimensions and timeframes beyond our immediate perception. The trees you plant today may provide shade for generations you'll never meet. The truth you stand for now may validate experiences of those not yet born. The integrity you maintain in this moment may inspire courage in others long after you're gone. As you continue your journey as one of the authentic, remember that your greatest contribution isn't fighting against falseness, but standing firmly for truth. It isn't exposing others' darkness, but radiating your own light. It isn't convincing the inauthentic of their inauthenticity, but demonstrating through your lived example that another way is possible. Your existence is both invitation and evidence, invitation to a more authentic way of being, and evidence that such authenticity is attainable, sustainable, and ultimately more fulfilling than any comfort gained through compromise. They try to escape what they did to you, but the universal law of reciprocity ensures that every energy returns to its source, not as punishment, but as teacher, not as vengeance, but as opportunity for evolution, not as ending, but as potential new beginning. Your role was never to enforce this law or accelerate its timeline. Your role was simply to remain so deeply aligned with your own truth that you became a living embodiment of what's possible when one refuses to compromise their light, regardless of pressure, regardless of consequence, regardless of temporary personal cost. In the end, the greatest victory isn't watching others face the consequences of their actions, but discovering that their actions never defined you. They never diminished your essence, never reduced your potential, never limited your purpose. What they attempted to do to you revealed everything about them and nothing about you. And in maintaining your truth through it all, you didn't just survive their attempts at diminishment, you transcended the entire framework in which diminishment was possible. You discovered the undiminishable light that you are, the uncompromisable truth that you carry, the unsuppressible authenticity that defines your journey in this world.